What up, everybody? Scuffy here, and today we're going to be doing ourselves a deck list for Flaymaster Mawdrym. Now, this is a player request. When I say player request, I've had actually a couple different people request things over the last few months, especially had several requests for Flaymaster Mawdrym of the Night Lords, as well as a couple of other warlords or video ideas. So I'm going to be spending the next couple of weeks trying to get through that list and trying to touch on the requests or the warlords or the topics that have been asked and suggested. So if you've got any topics, anything you'd like to hear, please let me know. Hit me up in the Discord, the Reddit, wherever it is that you can reach me at. Just leave comments in the video down below if there's a video topic or warlord that you would like to see that I haven't covered. And I'll see what I can do about that. So that's what I'm currently doing for the next couple of videos are going to be player request driven. Still going to be working on my own stuff in the meantime, but I want to try to help people who would like to try some different things. And there are so many guys. We are with the with the new collection, with the new warlords added here, with fourth Night Warlord, Chimeric Gravewalker, who just got added to the game 2 days ago. Yesterday or 2 days ago. He's new. That brings up the grand total to max out all the deck slots. I mean, this thing's full. Now, granted, yes, I've got 2 Vironis in here, but if I had Jagtai Khan, which I don't, he's the only warlord I don't have, then this would still be full. So we got a lot of warlords to choose from. There's over 100 warlords. There's just so many options out there, and then many of the warlords, most, have got multiple ways to play and build them. So there's no wrong way to go about doing it. And if there's a topic or an idea or warlord, long story short, if you want to see it, let me know. I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can come up with. Now, I've been working on Flaymaster Mawdrym for a while. Now, just a fair note, I was playing him before this periodically, off and on, just for fun, ever since they changed his passive. Now, they gave him this passive, which he did not have before. Way back when, he had low initiative. He had deal 2 damage, give can attack. That's been his ability since the get-go. But the low initiative was really a turnoff. And then they gave him medium initiative, as well as this passive here that gives relentless deal 1 damage to non-damaged or damaged non-warlord enemies. That breathed a lot of new life into him, and that was back when they changed the Emperor's Children and they improved the Targaryen squad. I started playing Saltarvits. It's been over a year, and I think at the time that was like original Dar had gotten changed as well. They did 3 warlords that got changes, and that was one of them. And I had a lot of fun with Mawdrym, just kind of off and on passively. But I don't even know when I played these. I must have played these ranked games way back when as well. Most of the games I've done have just been practice, and probably the last, I'd say 15, 16 games have been friendly, just testing out the deck, making some slight tweaks, as it were. But overall, got a comfortable build. Now, really quick, I would not suggest Flaymaster Mawdrym if you're looking to climb ladder high. If you want to get into 3,000 plus, you're gonna have a hard time. It's not impossible. You have the cards that I use in the deck here, as well as the cards that are available to the Night Lords and Flaymaster Mawdrym in general, make it very difficult. It's not impossible. A lot of the wins that I've had here were very clutch, or just between knowing how to play and very smart play, a little bit of luck, and or just by the skin of my teeth in some of those games. There's not a lot of room above 3,700, let alone 3,000 for those types of variances. There's going to be some luck in there, but there really shouldn't be so much in terms of by the skin of your teeth. So if you're looking to climb ladder, Flaymaster couldn't get you to Terra. He can get you to Terra. He might even get you to 2,600, although you might be pulling your hair out sometimes because some days aren't going to be better than others. But that's probably about it. There are just some limits to him. Now, I do think if they were to change some of the support cards that he has, then he would be in a great place, and he could go much, much higher than that. His ability, as it is a good ability. He's honestly got one of the best abilities in the game. Now, take that for what it is. It's pay 2 to deal 2. But then he gives can't attack until your next turn. This is non-defining. You can target a vehicle, a troop, a warlord, a titan weapon, whatever it is that you want to do. And then that unit can't attack. Can't attack is a status that cannot be... There's currently no cards that remove that. You have cards that remove stun, a small handful of cards that remove stun, but the can't attack effect cannot be removed unless your opponent just straight out uses a sabotage. Or a self-jam effect. And those are very few and far between, so that's what makes it so powerful. The fact that it deals 2 on top of that, and then you throw in this relentless. Deal 1 damage to damage non-warlord enemies. Gives Flaymaster some breathing room. It almost, in a way, gives him the potential to have a 3 attack. For a lot of those troops that have 3 attack, they're not going to survive on your turn. Normally your opponent has got, let's say, a las rifle section. It's a 3/3 body. And they throw out at you and they attack you with it. And they hit you with that 3/3. And then you normally, under normal circumstances, have got to deal with this body and then play your own troop. Spend a tactic, whatever the case may be. That's not the case here. Flaymaster is going to deal with it automatically. It goes away. And you get to play your stuff for free without having to worry about this card. So it forces your opponent in a position to either play multiple cards or cards with higher health, or cards that they're going to take that hit and then they have to spend advanced healing options early on to keep those things on the board. Now, whether they use cards like Angel's Tears, or Angelic Presence, I should say, Angelic Presence or Pi Alpha to heal, they could do that, or they could just, take the hit. Effects like Survivor are problematic for Flaymaster because that prolongs the cards that are out there, and that really is kind of counteracts his initial grinding. But it's a very strong ability, tempered by the fact that he's in the Night Lord's card pool, which is not a terrible card pool, but they're very light, very hit and fade and cowardly. They've got bursts out there, and that's about it. Don't have a whole lot of sustaining presences on the board. That's really where the driving fact is, and he's got that 30 health. So even though he's got this strong ability, he is on a fragile frame, and if you cannot make the most of that ability, then you are going to suffer losses. So those are very important things to take into consideration when you are building Flaymaster Mawdrym, as well as when you're playing Flaymaster Mawdrym. You don't have a lot of breathing room. You have to be aggressive, but you have to be aggressive and smart, and that's very important. Those don't always go hand in hand. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple games. And then I want to show the deck that I've got currently as it stands, and then we'll take another look at another game, maybe talk about some cards that you could include in there if you don't have these cards that I've got, or you're looking to change things up a little bit. Okay, so we are facing off against Raldoron. Now, right out the gate, not a great hand. Copper mode is kind of a little pick of mine initially. We'll see how it goes. Mercy and Forgiveness is probably the best card in the Night Lord's faction, aside from the Raven, and getting both those in my starting hand. That's great. I feel good about that. The Night Lord counterattack is also very nice. Now, because he's got medium initiative, he doesn't always get that counterattack option, but it's a very good counterattack to get. He's got this great ability, though, so very rarely do I use the counterattack as a sneak attack on him unless I've got Mercy and Forgiveness, because then that's a guaranteed free. I can play that on curve, as I do here, and I'm going to do the damage that I can. Now, I broke the pot so he doesn't get landing. I kept the counterattack for future, and this is just a prime example, if you didn't know what Mawdrym does. He's not going to do anything with this unit. I take 4 damage, and then he loses that unit. And I've got an unsequestered time. I can play that troop, and I can tap out 4 damage. I'm going to force him to deal with my copper mode. He's likely got a tactic that's going to destroy it, which is fine. I'd rather him spend tactics on bodies, troops, than on my warlord. And he sure does. This is very important with Mawdrym, or most any 30 hit point warlord, is you have got to give your opponent targets to throw those juicy tactics at, those damage dealing tactics at. Because if not, they're going to go on your warlord, and your game span will shorten up significantly. Mawdrym's ability is very strong. If he has Mercy and Forgiveness, and he's got the ability to tap it twice, it gets stronger. However, he has a clock. He has an eternal clock going with that health. So he cannot last forever. Healing is very important. Equitrez is a prime example of that. Disagreement is another great Night Lord's card that can be useful in a pinch to burst up 5 health, and 5 health will take you out of lethal range against several enemies. Now, you might say to yourself, well, why did you do that with Melgator right away? Because I know we're getting approaching that 7 energy turn, and I have got to have all the health I can against the Blood Angels to deal with their host of angels. Now this is where the playing comes in smart, or carefully, I should say. I've got to lock down those units, at least one of them, that I can. I'm going to break both of these ones that are adjacent to Raldoron. I'm leaving the one here. The reason I didn't destroy this second drop pod as opposed to this one is because I locked it down for a can attack, and in the event that he had Angel's Tears and he wanted to play Angel's Tears in there, it would make it less effective for him to get a Requiem effect off. He'd have to hit Requiem with just 1 troop as opposed to 2. So it's very important. I'm going to have to do that a second time with little change up in the order here, but we've got Night Size that's going to get rid of 1. I'm going to lock down another, and we're going to change this again. Now, I didn't lock down this troop here because I still don't want to keep that 4-3, and then we just have got enough lethal out here. If he doesn't heal with a Crimson Spectre, I've got him with the Raven. Even if he heals with a Crimson Spectre, I've still got him with the Raven because I have got Bloodthirst on my Flaymaster, and I can pump out 4 from him plus the Raven, so I've got lethal range of 12. And I am okay taking pumped up damage from these guys. But that is really just a matter of anticipating what my opponent can play, knowing what I have at hand, and going from there. The second Descent of Angels, or the drop pod, as it were, that's a tough play back to back. But having answers and knowing that I can survive and endure it for the lethal is super important. Okay, now this is a great game to showcase smart playing of Flaymaster Mawdrym. This is very important. First off, I'm facing a Ornithov. The Raven is going to have a hard time against Ornithov's ability. I don't need Pi Alpha. I'm going to keep Jubok, and we're going to go from there. It's a decent opening hand. Depending on what the Ornithobs throw out, a lot of the Ornithobs I've been seeing lately have been doing desperate defense, using defense forces, going for the big, large frontline bodies. I think Ornithov is a really fun warlord to play. He's playing Command Bridge, which makes me think that's definitely the way he's going. He hasn't opened up with Asteroid Sanctuary, but he's got a low-cost troop. Was that created by him or not? I don't know. Let's see. Let's test this theory. Keep my bodies on the board. Now he's going to have the counterattack, so Jubok is never going to last a turn. That's my answer. Yeah, that's in his deck. So I have got a clock ticking. I've got to get to him before 10 energy, or I've got to get him in a position at 10 energy where I can take him out quickly and efficiently, or at least endure and lock down whatever it is that he's throwing out there. He's going to try to shut my energy down. That's fine. He's welcome to go ahead and do that. Again, nice draw here for Mercy and Forgiveness. This is the prime time to do it. I'm up 3 health. Normally, I do not advocate this with Mawdrym. This is something I'll talk about when we get a little bit more into the deck design space. Mercy and Forgiveness typically is not something that you want to throw down on your 30 hit point warlord and attack twice. However, Understanding what my opponent is playing is very important. Understanding that I have got to get him down, 14 health here basically in 4 turns in order to navigate effectively around Desperate Defense. Now, I've got some nice wide range support here. Got Informant Network, Defense Satellites. That's not going to do anything for me. That's actually going to chunk up his board a little bit. I'm just going to use my ability here. I can hit him for 4 damage every turn. I've got 3 more turns to do it. That's 12 damage. It's not going to be nice if this thing sticks around a little bit. I'll do a little ping on here just to hit it so that it can be affected by Flaymaster's passive every turn. I could have just doubled down on the 4, but I don't want him dropping a troop, pumping it up, and then also giving it frontline. I gotta deal with this somehow, so I'm gonna spread my love around a little bit. I really don't care about 3 of these cards. See, just like in that instance here, I still don't care about it. I can take 3 attack if I'm dishing out 4. Thankfully, Ambassador Melgator is going to buy me some much needed time here, and we're going to go to town on Ornitov, even though he hit me with energy reduction. And he starts out ahead of me on energy. I mean, he's going to be at 10 energy when I'm at 7. He's at a huge advantage here. It's just a matter of playing, and I think this is where he makes a mistake. I'm not sure why he did that. I'm not sure if that was his big option. If he forgot that I have got this can't attack ability, and can't attack is in ways worse than stun. I'm going to give his maintenance 4 demon lockdown, and then I can ping away at Ornitov over the next 2 turns, 3 turns if I wish. He is not going to be able to play Desperate Defense with that maintenance 4 out. He can play a defense force, but he's not going to be able to do anything else with it. And if I'm taking 3 damage from this guy plus Ornitov, I still have plenty of health, and of course I've got my own cards in hand. So I'm not at a loss here at all. That's a misplay. However, had he not played the Yuri and he had played some other card in place of that, I could have still locked down that unit and done exactly what I'm doing here with the Ornitov. His board is filled up of all these little low health troops that are all locked down, can't attack, so even if he could play Desperate Defense, he's only going to get 1 unit as opposed to 2. And I'm sitting pretty, and that's just a matter of anticipating my opponent's build, getting a very valuable clue with that Jukebox Starsight pull, and then pressing the time down, knowing what cards are going to work and what cards aren't going to work. I hardly played any cards at all from my hand that entire game, because any card that I played from hand was not going to do what I needed to do in that game. That's very important. So let's take a look at the deck. The deck itself is got all of the classic offenders. There are a couple cards that have been tweaked and traded. Now, full disclosure, the Night Lords I consider to be one of the most rare intensive factions. And when I say rare intensive, I mean that you have got to have almost all, if not all, of the legendaries and epics to make a suitably competitive deck. And I'm sorry if that is news that upsets you, but that is the truth. And it's not just because their cards are good. Mercy and Forgiveness is great. The Raven is great. Andros Shrek is, where is he? He's very good. But that's also because they really assist and complement the Night Lord's style and way to end games. Now, I've also got in here Kaiser Lane to give me some options. You saw Ambassador Melgator, Jukebox Starsight. Nostromo is a fantastic card. Ekratrez. There's a lot of legendaries in here. You could tweak some. You could lose a Manifest Destiny, although I would caution you on that. And then I've got a lot of epics in here too. I've got Double Reapers of Kaldrak, definitely a must-have. Night Sice is a one-of, just because instead of the 7 energy hard removal, I go with the Night Sice, because Mawdrym's got ability to lock down and softly, slowly remove, as opposed to hard remove. And then I have got Doombringer in here, because it complements in with Mawdrym's ability very nicely. And Vicurant. Now, The Raven is the only card that I've got that costs 8. It costs above 8. That's very important because at the very least, I want to be able to play if I play a big card, I want to be able to play a big card and use my ability at 10 energy, if that is an option. That's why I don't have a 7 in here. That's why I've only got a couple 6s, and the most of what I've got in here is at 3 energy. That is a very large, I mean, that's more than a third of my deck is at 3 energy, because I want to be able to play a troop and use my ability at 5, 6, 7, 8 energy. If I'm throwing down Ekratrez, if I'm throwing down a Pi Alpha, if I'm throwing down fast troops. And that's very important. I've got a couple key cards in here that are uber important. Number one, Tenebrae Talon is super nice. I've got troops, but as you can see, I've got a lot of 3-cost troops. They don't stick around very often, which makes Tenebrae Talon very easy to come out and play. I do not have in this deck, and I do not think you should have a deck. If you've got Recon Claw in your deck, and you're aiming to use Recon Claw and flank with your Night Lords, then you may want to reconsider your Tenebrae Talon, and vice versa. Tenebrae Talon is a very good card, but if you have a Recon Claw out, then he is not going to gain you fast. Tyranno Squad is a little bit more conditional fast, however, with Mawdrym's ability, which can get rid of your opponent's 1 health troops, it gives him a little bit more option to actually be viable. If your opponent has no troops, he gains fast. Well, if at the start of your turn you kill all of his 1 health troops, it's entirely possible that Tyranno Squad is going to have fast. So, 3 fast and a 4 fast, you got doubles of those. In of themselves, they're not fantastic, but they've got 3 health bodies, so they cause a little bit of problem for 2-attack warlords that your opponent has got to deal with on their following turn. Plus, they hit fairly well. You combine that with Flaymaster's ability, turn after turn after turn. 6 energy, I play a Tenebrae Talon, it's a fast, I hit it for 4, I use my ability, I lock down my opponent's warlord, he can't attack back. He now has to either choose to use a tactic or be in a hard position to play his next troop or play his fast and flank troops to get rid of this guy who already did his job. That's super important. These guys are distractions. Again, this all ties back into you have a 30 health point warlord. You want your opponent to put as much of his cards into your troops so that they're not going into your warlord as possible. That's very important. If I've got cards like Kaiser laying down, Jubok, those are cards that your opponent doesn't want to stick around. They're going to target those and try to get rid of them. Guys who can lock down the board, or guys who are lurking in the shadows and get a big fat attack off, are opponents that they're going to want to deal with. They don't want these guys sitting around here. And if they're spending 2 or 3 cards on Night Sight, then they're not spending 2 or 3 cards on Flaymaster, and you close that gap, or you continue to expand your option, closing into lethal for either the Raven or for a fuss and kill with the double tap or the Mercy and Forgiveness or whatever else that you've got. If you've got a pocket Tenebrae Talon, pull it out. Talent for Murder, another can attack, and it changes the health of a troop to 1. Now, I ran into one game where this was problematic. I contacted Evergill. I think there's a timing in the codes because it changes the health of a troop to 1. That doesn't mean that it lowers it to 1 health. So it's not going to work with Mawdrym's Relentless. But then I had it where that troop that has 1 health that gets a buff, so it goes up to 2 health, takes a damage, and normally that would still show it as a red as opposed to a green. It's kind of in the way the coding works, and it wasn't doing that. So that may or may not get changed, but those are really rare circumstances where that's going to happen. Talent for Murder is still very useful. At 10 energy, if you have Mercy and Forgiveness on Mawdrym, with Talent for Murder, you can lock down 3 units, 2 of which are going to take damage and be susceptible to Mawdrym's passive on the next turn, or at the very least, deal 4 damage to your opponent's warlord and lock down a unit that you can kill on your following turn. I've got 2 card promotes in there. As you saw, that is, again, that's an attack card, that's a bait card, it's really a cursory custom. It really ties into just the, hey, you attack me, deal damage. This can be changed out. This is not a locked in progress. I have taken this out and added this back in 3 or 4 different times. Never found anything different that I love or hate about it. Informant Network, I've got doubles of those in there for the super important reason that it breaks stealth. It deals 1 damage, which is going to trigger Mawdrym's passive on subsequent turns, but it also allows me to target those units that survive the informant network. Not to mention it's very handy against duplicitous Caliban Jaegers. Those are problems. Duplicitous as a whole is a problem for Mawdrym. Prior to doing Mawdrym, I was doing Defenders of Caliban, I was playing Mir Astalin, I was playing Zahariel, and I ran into several different Mawdryms, and they can't target my duplicitous troops. And that makes it hard for them to do anything. And that it puts me at a huge advantage. So you have got to have ways to answer that, whether that is with Rule of Fear, Informant Network, or with defensive satellites, or just having flanking troops yourself, right? Like a Condrager, these guys are okay, and then they force your opponent to respond to them. There's not any one overriding answer, so having multiple answers gives you an option at all times. Now, could some of these tactics be different? Absolutely. Does Kaiser Lane and Jukebox sometimes give me options? Absolutely. Do they always give me options? No, not always, but sometimes they're going to give me something that I can work with. One thing that I have seen people use, and you could change your build up a little bit to incorporate it, is punitive action in place of defensive satellites. And this is really if you're going to use a lot more low health troops, 1-2 health cost troops, you could drop a punitive action late game and deal 3 or 4 damage across the board much more effectively than defensive satellites, which is going to be random damage. The problem is that it takes a lot more energy, a lot more time to set up, and that's just not what my build is aimed to do. So things play differently. There's no wrong way to do it, but you do have to understand why I chose not to include it as opposed to why I included defensive satellites. At the very least, I'm getting 1 damage. Chances are I might get 4, but the other way around, I'm only going to ever get 1 damage, and I'm not going to have more than 1 or 2 troops on the board typically in most of my games. So that's the strategy there. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at one more game with Mawdrym so you can kind of get some understanding a little bit more, and we'll talk about cards that you could change in if you don't have these cards or you're looking for something a little different. Okay, now this is against Kabanda, which is an aggressive warlord, which is probably going to be not too happy that he's facing me. But this is important because this is in these types of matchups, when you're facing a warlord such as Kabanda, Angron, I would almost also say like a Knight household, because they can burst out with that House Aethergan card. There are just some warlords that are just going to attack all the time. Rom is another. I've had several Rom records. Kurz. For those warlords, you constantly have to hit them with your ability every turn. There's no I'll just play a troop here and I'll duck out, because that one turn that you duck out is the turn that they burst ahead. So I'm going to lock down his warlord as often as I can. I'm going to force him to play the troops that he's got. That's fine. He's going to do that. There's nothing I can do about it. I am going to try dealing with his troops, because really the Runestorm All-Star is not necessarily the warlord. He's going to deal 3, and that's going to hurt. It's the troops that can get those mutations, and they can get stronger. So I've got to do something about that. So I have to change my strategy here as he's playing troops down, and it's a smart strategy on his part, because he's forcing me not to use my ability. Not sure why he's playing with this card here. Or maybe he just doesn't have better options. But he's dumping cards into my troops. He's still got energy to play. He's got a heavily mutated now Plague Bearer of Nurgle. It doesn't have ward though. Oh, I spoke too soon. It got ward. Things are about to get real. So with that being said, then I have got to take action. I've got to kill it. I've got to hurt it. I give him another mutate, more probably than I needed to do, to be honest with you. I'm going to force him to do something with that card, and I'm going to have to eat 4 here. I'm at low health. He's at a high advantage in this game. And this is just how quickly the games can swing for Mawdrym with his 30 health if you're facing an aggressive warlord. So there's very little room for playing around with. You know, quite frankly, it's problematic. As I put out this big warlord here, he can still fly over and hit me with a 3, or if he does like a he plays that card, he's a 5 attack, I could be down to 11. It's not great. He's going to get rid of the threat, that's fine, and actually it's going to leave him into lethal, although he's got this nice little rage ability. It's going to do some damage back to me. So I've really got to heal. I've got disagreement, so I can use that if I must. I'm going to hope that he doesn't have anything that can deal out a lot of burst damage, because right here he's coming at me with 8 damage. That's going to leave me with 5 health. And he's going for the mutation. And this is really just where it comes down to, is it luck? Was he just not getting bad mutations? Did he make a wrong play here? I think it's probably the smartest play he could make. He's still got me very low health. Although he just put out and play a troop that I can Melgator and then I can disagreement, so that can help me close the gap decently well. And I am going to go ahead and do that because I need to do that. And I can throw down Ekratrez to give myself some more health. Yep, that's what I thought I did. And they were almost even. I've got the Raven, so as long as he doesn't have any front line, and as long as I can get him to 8 health here, I'll be in an okay spot, but that's very tricky to do. Not gonna lie, that's very tricky to do. He's got mutations, he's got buffs. What's not to like? We're healing if I need to do that. We're gonna go ahead and lock down that demon here. We're playing without mercy and forgiveness, so I'm only ever going to lock down one troop at a time. So that's why Reaper of Kaldrak or even the Talent for Murder are so important for Mawdrym, because they expand his options for can't attacks, right? I think this is a misplay on his part. And maybe he was just hoping to clear the whole board here, but I think that was his misplay. Because this is really where that opens up. He stunned his warlord. Okay, he's got more health than me, so that's not too bad. I can remove the stun, so that's good. And then I'm going to go ahead and get rid of his Poxbringer here with my ability. And then his warlord is still stunned, so we can't get rid of this Pi Alpha. And if you're doing math, that's 12 health right there. So that could have been worse. I think it came down to just him over expecting his Poxbringer to survive and for him to solidify the board. So a little bit of luck there. And that's really what some of those wins come down to. I'm not going to shake it to you. I mean, this Mawdrym, like I said, I've been playing him for a while. 25 out of 32. That feels pretty good. I would say in ranked now, he would not fare much better than 3 out of 8 wins. I think that's still a fair assessment. But those wins are going to come by the skin of your teeth. And if you're comfortable with that, go for it. But if you're not, then consider some options. So if you don't have some of these cards, or you want to make some changes or tweaks, some other cards to consider for Mawdrym that are useful. First off, I do think that if you want to use Recon Claw, then you need to change your whole build completely. And that's fine. If you're putting in Recon Claw, he's very useful to have, then there's certain troops that you want to have in there. I do think that Copper Mode should go out if that's the case. And a card like either Night Raptors, it's an option, but Headsman definitely. I've seen Headsman or Support Talent. Support Talent is very nice. Its ability is a little expensive, but you can use this on a Warlord, and if you can give him the Tigress Exodus, if you're able to combo those cards very well, then not only can you give can't attack with your Warlord, but then you can give stun with the Support Talent. It takes a little bit tricky to set up. I think Vibius Talon can very easily go in place of one of these troops. If you don't have one of the rares or commons, you can put Vibius Talon in place for a Conjurer, for a either for Copper Mode or for a Reaper of Kaldrak. Reaper of Kaldrak's going to net you more out at the end of it, but I think Vivius Talon is not bad. Having a 5 flank is good. Curses Chosen is not in the deck, and as you saw, I don't have Spectre of Judgment in the deck. Again, I'm using my ability to do the damage. Now, I do think Vosk Predator is a strong consideration. If you don't have Doombringer, or you don't have Night Scythes, Vosk Predator is worth considering. It's a little bit more expensive on one, a little bit cheaper than the other for a one-time damage, but dealing 3 damage can sometimes win you the game if it hits your opponent's Warlord, clears out a front line, whatever the case may be. Vosk Predator is a strong recommendation. And then it's a 7/5 body. And then it's a big 7/5 body on the board. What's not to like? Instrumentar, no, pass. Pass on that guy. Vakurin is the way to go. If you need frontline, at the end of the day, if you desperately feel like I just don't have enough frontline and I need more frontline, then you need to go into the Mechanicum or the Imperial Army card pool. You need a card like Ornithop's Barge. Where is it at? You need a card like Ornithop's Barge, or you need just some of the bigger, beefier front lines. I think Skitarii Protector is a good frontline troop. At the very least, you could get with Gamma Theta 2, which is going to be a high attack troop for frontline on your opponent's turn. It's a little bit costly. Again, I would caution you to have troops that cost above 4 or 5 in your build. If you don't have Kaiser or Jukebox Starsight, Alpha Theta 2 is a great recommendation. It's got 4 health as opposed to 3. It's going to create Mechandrites in your hand. Or you go the other way and you go with Cultists and you use the Brotherhood out there, or some of these other Cygnus Prime Cultists now that are pretty nice. Cygnus Fanatic is a great one because he's going to pump up and fully heal. And then you've got not Horus Cultists. Where are they at? Where are those guys at? Yeah, Cygnus Adept. These guys here that can put in play Cultists. It's a little different theme and build, and those Cultists aren't going to do a whole lot for you, but they are going to be distractions, and that is all that you need sometimes. You can put Atham in if you don't have Manifest Destiny. Again, healing is important. Now you'll note in here in this deck with the Disagreement, with Ekertrez, and with the Pi Alpha, as well as the Manifest Destiny, you got to consider that. That's several cards dedicated to prolonging the life of my Warlord. That's very important. So make sure that you consider that. You also want to have at least one card in your deck that can remove stun for your Warlord or to help you close out the game. It's a pinch. You don't have to use it all the time. I like Pi Alpha 52 because if I use Pi Alpha 52 and then I use Disagreement, Pi Alpha 52's got 2 health. He's probably not going to survive the next turn anyways, but if for 4 energy, I can heal 8 on my Warlord and remove stun. I like that. I like that combination quite a bit. You could also, if you had to, I'm scrolling through cards really fast here, but if you had to pick out, I would say Monster of Pythos over Night Scythes or Reaper of Kaldrak, you could put those in there because they're going to hit very hard for that 6 attack, and they have 4 health. It's a one-time attack, but again, it's going to force your opponent to deal with what's on the board. If you're really new or low to the game, low collection to the game, you may want to consider the Trap, because this is a card that your opponent's got to invest cards to get rid of. It's going to delay them from putting troops on the board, which allows you to continue to focus the effect, the efforts on your opponent's Warlord. And you've got to have some stuff that can hit hard. Another great thing that you can give Can't Attack to your opponent's Warlord, and then have squads like Sagittarius Squad, which can ping every turn, or even the classic vehicle, the Helios Mortar Carrier, right? You have a Helios Mortar Carrier hidden out there, and then pinging your opponent's Warlord for 3. You've given them Can't Attack, so they can't even try to get rid of this thing. They've got to spend tactics on it. You use that and supply lines, and then take out some of those, like leave the Reaper of Kaldrax, leave the Mortar Carriers, put in supply lines, and you can shift your build to a vehicle build, and then have Mawdrym kind of acting as a hold down, an oppressive Warlord, while your vehicles do most of the work. It's harder to do it that way because it just is. Because you still have to put those things down. Those are higher cost troops. That's why I go with the 3 cost. That's just my preference. I don't think there's, again, any wrong way to do it. But if you don't have these legendaries, it's going to be hard for you. Most importantly, you need to have Mercy and Forgiveness and Nostromo. And the Raven. Well, as much as I'd love for you to have Endroshek out there, I can understand if you don't. But I think you really, again, going back to it, Night Lords are just so rare intensive. The play experience that you get for a Night Lords game with the legendaries and epics is so far from the without that it's like night and day. Or should I say it's like Night Lords and Day Lords. It's like the Night Man cometh. The Night Man cometh, ladies and gentlemen. It fights the Day Man comes and fights the Night Man because he's the fighter of the Night Man, master of karate and friendship for everyone. So that is Mawdrym. That is Flaymaster Mawdrym. That's my Mawdrym build. I hope that's been helpful for those of you guys who would like to play Mawdrym, who'd like to see him in action. I don't want to dissuade anyone. He is a very powerful. Again, I said one of the strongest abilities in the game. I don't think you can dispute that, but it is on a very fragile frame with the 30 hit point Warlord and the Night Lord card pool as contingent on rarity and low health as it is. So it's a very small, minute, dangerous yet fragile package. And if you are into that, or you want that challenge, or you feel like you can maneuver it well enough, you'll enjoy Mawdrym. Mawdrym is very fun to play. There's nothing better than just locking down things. But if you don't know what you're doing, or your opponent can bait you out with multiple stuff that you cannot use your ability on more than one at a time, and you get distracted, your turn counter goes down, your life health is going to go down, they will take advantage of that, and they will win very easily. So those are things to consider. So if this has been helpful, pass it along. Please share it to any other people who you're looking in your lodge or in the game that are looking to play Night Lords. Hopefully, I've given you some ideas and some thoughts out there, and I'm curious to see how you're playing Mawdrym. Are there other cards that I didn't mention in here? Styles of play that you like to use? Do you use Rule of Fear? Do you use Deep Strike? I don't see enough people use Deep Strike. I think it's a little bit costly for a Mawdrym for setup, but maybe it has a purpose. I think it's a good card I'd like to see in some other decks, but again, I don't know about Mawdrym, but I mean, are you using the Spectre of Judgment, or do you use the Kurlan Veterans to bait your opponent out? I'm very curious to hear what people have to say, what they're using, what they're playing. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll be continue to work on these player request videos. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching. Keep playing Legions, and we'll talk to you next time.